Hi, it's Paul Antonelli here. Welcome to another episode of the Ideal Business Podcast. Today, I'm delivering this podcast to you from a place called Robin Falls, which is in the Northern Territory. There's a creek just behind me. We're really been camping here for a couple of nights. Beautiful spots in the Northern Territory in the top end of Australia. Might hear a bit of background noise. There's a lot of cicadas in the background, and the creek running, so I've tried to minimize it, but you might hear about. I just wanted to sort of set that backdrop. Okay, thanks for joining me again today. What am I going to be talking about today is the idea of delivering in abundance as a platform for expansion and growth for your business. And I'm going to explain a little bit about what that means. Basically, what happens in all businesses is that we have what we call there's an exchange that needs to take place. So in every single business on the planet, there's an exchange. And typically what happens, and I'll just explain it at a different level, there's exchanges between yourself and your team members. So you expect something from them, they expect something from you. There's an exchange between yourself and suppliers. There's an exchange that takes place between yourself and your clients. So just consider that, for example, when you sell something to a client, there's an exchange that's taken place. And that exchange can be at a whole number of different levels. Yeah. Now, the higher you can set the level of exchange, the more prosperous and effective your business growth and expansion will be. And let me explain that. So let's start. So what are the differences of levels of exchange, I guess? So when you look at, I'll probably use the example of a restaurant, going to a restaurant. Yeah, when we go to a restaurant, I'll use that as an example of demonstrating different levels of exchange that might take place. So the first sort of level that can take place is below expectations or below the minimum. And what that means is you had some expectations around the product or the service, and for whatever reason, once you've had it delivered or been using the product, it was actually below what you expected. So that's below the minimum. Yeah, so that's not a great place to be. And so if you can, if your business delivers at, you can imagine what happens the more often that your clients go away going, well, it wasn't actually that great. So you might have sold it to them really well, but the deliverability wasn't brilliant. You can see how that will be a problem because people talk to people. So that's below the minimum. The next level of exchange, which is sort of normal, and this is where typically most businesses end up. And what happens here is in a normal, and if I go back, sorry, I'll just step back a little bit. So below the minimum, I'll give you so the restaurant, went to an Italian restaurant for dinner. What would indicate that the exchange that we had was below minimum? Well, firstly, we turned up, we made a booking. They didn't actually have any record of the booking. I'd expect them to have that record of the booking. So we had to wait while they organised the table for us. They left us with menu for about 20 minutes, 25 minutes, which is below what I'd expected. Normally within 10 minutes, normally someone checks in on you. So that was below. They came to take our order eventually, and then it took 40 minutes for the food to arrive. It all came out in dribs and drabs, so we didn't all get our meal at the same time. And then there was, some of the food was cold, not up to standard. So you can see with that whole exchange, I'm going away going, wow, on so many different fronts, it was just below my expectations. So that's below the minimum. So now, if you move into the normal exchange, this is better, obviously far better than below the minimum. So it's a normal exchange. So what would that look like? This is actually where the expectations aligned with the delivered service or product. So what I expected, or what you expected, or what the consumer expected is what they got. So let's say we turned up to the restaurant, we'd made a booking, they greeted us professionally, took us to our reserved table, which is great. They came, gave us promptly, ordered our food within 10 minutes, the meals came out, it was all good. And they were good meals, nothing to complain about. It was a great experience. It was an okay experience. This is pretty much what we would have expected, okay? And I think, a lot of businesses fall into the trap of going, that's actually really good. If we can just do that level, just deliver clients what they expected. The one that's really where we should all be aiming and striving for as businesses is exchange over and above what's expected, So what that means is that you just get whatever it is as part of the experience or the product or the service. There's components of it that are just over and above. So let's look at that restaurant example. We turn up after making a booking. The owner actually remembered us. He came back to us and shook our hands as part of the greeting process. It's pretty nice. He actually said he knows we like the balcony view, so he took us to a table on the balcony with a view and said, I know you like that particular table. And then he asked us if there was any specific requirements or anything on the menu that we would need to look at if we had any specific dietary requirements. And then we were starting to look at the menu, and then to our surprise, the chef sent out some very tasty appetizers, which were complimentary. Yeah, so it was very tasty. And then they asked whether we want still or sparkling water. They brought out sparkling, and it was complimentary, which is pretty unusual. And then while we were preparing for our order, they actually told us that the orders are quite large, so you might want to think about that. If we weren't overly hungry, you might want to share some food. The food came out promptly, and when the food was delivered to us, the waiter took a little time to explain a little bit about the meals. This is this and this is that, which is really nice. So you have a bit more of appreciation of what you're. Prior to leaving the restaurant, the owner came up and said, "Would you like a glass of limoncello?" We go, fantastic. So if you look at that experience, there were so many aspects of that were above and beyond what we expected. And so the exchange is what we would call in abundance, over the top exchange. So the lesson from this sort of concept of exchange is, and if you look at that example of the Italian restaurant example, what was the cost to the business to deliver that extra, that over and above what we expected? Minimal. What was the impact on us as a client? It was huge impact on us. Do we tell people? Do we tell our friends? Do we spread the story? Of course. So what I wanted to do, with keeping that in mind, whenever with your product, with your business, whether you're delivering a product or a service, you want to have stuff that just over delivers as the norm. But probably one of the most important things is you don't necessarily promise everything. You don't sort of state it up front that we do this and we do this and we do that and you get this from us and get that. Because what happens is if you create a product or a service, let's talk about a service, and you tell them you're going to do this and you're going to do that and this is how we deliver that, and which is great, but then it becomes expected. So the way this works most effectively is to absolutely have a framework that delivers in abundance, but hold some of that back in your communications and your marketing. Yeah, this is important. And so then when they get above and beyond, they then leave with a concept of, wow, that was just such an amazing experience. So what I'm suggesting then is, in your own business, whether it's relating to a product or to a service, how can you build in to ensure that every time you've delivered to a client, that it's an exchange in abundance? How can you do that? And the way to really go about doing that is building your model and your processes and your procedures so that it has all these exchange in abundance, so it happens every single time, but actually the client, from their perspective, see it as something above and beyond, over the top. So I'll give you a practical example. Let's say with ResiCert, the property inspection business, we have an incredible score for client satisfaction and service. We've had over 10 at the time. Right now, we've had over 10,000 testimonials, and the average score sits between 92, 93, 94%. And we have lots and lots and lots of testimonials that come through. And obviously there's a lot of positive, highly positive testimonials. With most of the testimonials we get are a 10 out of 10. They actually score us a 10 out of 10, which is pretty impressive. So why is that? So what we've done, for example, is in our process of delivering our services, we have all these components that are standard. And an example would be, from your perspective, is that we don't use jargon in our reports. We use lots of photographs. We keep the clients informed through communications, when it's booked, when it's scheduled, when it's completed. So we really make sure they're always aware of where things are at. We phone debrief the client. We phone debrief the referrer, the real estate agent. We always follow up after the service. And so we have, and we make sure that when we turn up, we've got a particular way of dealing with the process, making sure that we ask for permission before we enter a property. There's all these little things that we've done that build the standard process. Now, and a lot of this I found from the need and want activity that I undertook when I originally kicked off the business. And there is a podcast on the need and want process, which I'd encourage you to have a look at. And so after having built that in, what we have in that business is a business model that will always over deliver. Now, when we talk to clients, we don't tell them all the details of what we do. Oh, we'll phone debrief, we do this, we do that. We don't tell them all that sort of stuff. We sort of leave some of that behind. And so that when we do deliver that sort of service to them, they go, wow, that's more than I expected. Now, that was really great. Like the debrief, some clients come to the property and our franchisees will actually debrief them on site, which I find amazing. So having understood this idea of exchange, the idea in any business is to have your standard business model of what you do with your product or your service, always over deliver, always deliver more than what the client expects. Always deliver more than what the client expects. If you can do this in your business model and you don't, and the trick is to achieve that, as I've mentioned before, is not to lay it all out at the front end, keep some behind so that they go, wow, I didn't expect that. That's more than I expected, because then you're delivering in abundance, which is over the top of their expectations. And so by doing that, by looking at your business model, and looking at how you can do that. And often it's very small, minor things that you can do. It's not actually overly complicated. It doesn't necessarily have to cost a lot of money. It's just about expectations. So if clients come in with a specific expectation of what it will look like, if you can deliver above that, then you're going to be seen as a bit of a hero. They're going to go, wow, your service was fantastic. If comparing your service to another service, comparing your service to the value that you provided to them. So it's an important, it's a very simple concept, and you'll notice that if you think about businesses that you've engaged with, be them restaurants, be them suppliers, where you've gone away going, wow, that was just over the top in what they delivered. And you tell people about it. Well, it was fantastic service. They didn't have to do these things, but they did. They went that extra mile. They may, in fact, just have great employees that go that extra mile, which is a great thing. So that's another layer. But it may be actually what they do each and every time, which is pretty impressive. And I guess in today's world, people just have a higher expectation of service delivery and how things should work and speed of things turn around. And so it's even more challenging, because expectations are much higher, to actually overshoot their expectations of our clients, whether we're depending on the type of business that we run. So have a think about in your own business, how can you implement this? Well, the way to do it is to look at what value adds or over and above you can deliver to your clients, how you can build that into your process. Yeah, how can you build it into your standard delivery process so that it just becomes the norm? But that this will actually be above and beyond. It'll actually be above and beyond the expectations of your clients. Yeah. And if you can do that and groove that into process, you should be able to be delivering at that next level. And we test this, I guess. That's why we have a way of collecting testimonials. Of course, we use all the social media, the Google and the Facebooks and the reviews and all those sorts of things. But we also like to collect testimonials from clients where they score us as well, because that's something that we can control to a higher level, and we can understand whether what we're offering is in line with, below, is it below the minimum? Are there parts of our delivery model that aren't quite working? So that gives us a really instant live feedback loop. So look, I'd really encourage you to look at your own business. How can you deliver in abundance in your end-to-end engagement with clients? How can you keep that a little bit up your sleeve so your clients' expectations are not only met, but extended above and beyond? And just think about that, keep in mind that example of the restaurant service, where you could have standard, it was okay, below, it was okay, it was good, what I expected, but above and beyond. All right, hopefully that makes sense. It's a simple concept, but it's an important concept to understand. And if you can look at your own business and how you can always deliver in abundance, it'll make a big difference to your business, satisfaction of your clients, and the word of mouth referral and the growth of your business as well. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in to this podcast. Look forward to catching up with you again on another podcast in another location. Ciao for now.